Hi, and welcome to Two CPAs and the Mic, the podcast where we talk tax, finance, and all things related to business. Whether you're a business owner, working professional, or someone who wants to start a career in accounting, this is the podcast for you. Hosted by CCK Strategies partners Jeff Frable and Sara Mays, we dive into relevant business and tax matters with working professionals to make these topics less intimidating, relatable, and dare we say fun? Let's get down to business.
Welcome to this week's episode of Two CPAs and the Mic. My name is Jeff Frable. I'm a partner at CCK Strategies. That has not changed over the past season or so. And the second thing that hasn't changed is my co-host, Sara Mays. What's up, Sara?
Hey, Frable. Yes, thank goodness it hasn't changed.
It has
over
not
the last
changed.
season. And neither has mine. I'm also a partner at CCK.
Still, that's good news.
Yes, it's so good. Yes.
And we still have our handy dandy, trusty on-air producer, Christy Porter. Hi, Christy.
Hi, Jeff. Handy dandy. That's
Handy
a new
dandy.
one. Thank you.
That's better
Thank
than
you.
cohort.
Yes.
I
Or
was-
trusted sage.
Trusted Sage. Yes, I come up with them all. But yes, we are thankful you joined us for this week's podcast episode of Two CPAs and the Mic. We have got, Sara, sometimes we
Yes.
do like did I wake you up? Are you okay?
No. I'm listening.
All right.
You said, hey, Sara. And I said, yes.
It's almost like I surprised you. But sometimes we have,
I thought she got caught yawning.
no, it's not boring yet, I
No,
guess.
not
So,
boring yet.
to that end, sometimes we have very heartfelt, stories of how people got into the profession, how they got into business, entrepreneurial spirit. And then there's times that we get into a little bit more of the technical stuff. And we have promised our audience since day one that we would not get into all the weeds. We would not be code heads, but we would share relevant business and tax topics and do it with straight talk, but without all the jargon of our profession, the stuffiness that's associated with our profession. And today is no different. We are still going to do that. We have got an amazing guest today. She's one of our teammates. Her name is Haley Legg, and she is basically the director of our assurance department. But she is going to talk about assurance. She's going to talk about audit. She's going to talk about SOC exams, SOC, not SOCKS. So if you are an entrepreneurial business owner and you are handling customer information electronically, you definitely want to stay on and listen to this episode of the pod, because we're going to get into some really interesting things about not really audit requirements, but the way that independent parties look at the way that information is processed and different types of engagements that can, I guess, in some ways certify your ability to do that. So with that, Sara, this is your baby today. You're
My
going to
baby,
take
yes.
You're going to take this one on. So
I'm going to take
go
it
for
on, and I'm going to say, you said her name, but before I really introduce her and you can actually hear her speak, I'm going to say Haley is probably one of the least stuffiest people I know. So this is going to be like an amazing episode. And for those that are listening and you're like, if you're close to turning it off because you're like, I don't need nothing with no SOC exam. Yes, you do. You never know. You're going to learn something new today. So stay tuned and listen. So Haley.
And also,
Haley.
Sara, let me jump in. If not only entrepreneurial business owners, but if we have others in the profession that are new or seasoned, they may need to know what this is. We might have some younger individuals that may want to veer off into this area of the profession, of the industry as well.
That's right.
So,
That's right.
Okay. I'm sorry I talked. Go ahead.
Thank you so much, Frable. All right, Haley, welcome to Two CPAs and the Mic.
Thank you. I'm trying really hard to keep a straight face over here, but you guys know me well, and no, I'm not stuffy. So I appreciate that recognition. I've never wanted to be that person. I like to be very real, very genuine, and recognize that what I do day in and day out is not what most people enjoy doing day in and day out.
Right. But you bring when people think of audit and assurance and all of those things, and you're like, you automatically think of pocket protector, nerd. Haley is
mean people.
Mean people, yes. And that she is on the far opposite end of that nerd spectrum. She is the coolest person ever. So, Haley, for those that don't know you, that are tuning in, give us, the highlights of your profession, like where you started to how you landed at CCK.
So I have taken kind of what I think of as a roundabout path and a boomerang track. We'll start with college because I think it's important to understand how I got here.
Yes.
I started college as an English education major, and I quickly realized I don't actually really like kids very much. So that was maybe not the path that I needed to follow. But that's important because one of the things that I do love is getting to root cause. And so part of that process for me was, well, why don't I want to be an English education major? What don't I like? And then exploring with myself deeper what I did enjoy, what things were bringing me excitement and passion throughout college. It took me a while, but I eventually graduated with an accounting degree and a finance degree. And I was fortunate to start for a large firm here in Tulsa that said, hey, do you want to do audit? And I didn't know any better. I was a fresh college graduate. I was like, sure, why not? And then they said, how about healthcare audit? And I was like,
oh,
sure, why not?
Sure. I like helping people.
Yes.
I don't know. And I really didn't know, but I found a passion for helping people. And at one point in my college career, nursing had also been a major. So healthcare as part of that was really important for me because it helped me understand that just because my skills and talents weren't an obvious fit for healthcare didn't mean that they didn't provide support and the kind of help and assistance that others needed.
Nice.
And that really helped me grow my concept of what does it mean to help others? It's not just going out and feeding the poor and the needy or just giving my money all the time. It's finding ways that use my skills and abilities. And Christy talks about this so well with StrengthsFinder. And I know that's another podcast we have, but it has poured into me. And I've loved that because then after 7 years in public accounting, I got real tired. I traveled a lot. I was doing a lot of rural healthcare and I was worn out. So I tried really hard for 3 years to be an accountant. I'm not an accountant because I don't care about those details. I am so grateful that there are people who do care, but it just was not where my skills were. And it did not bring me joy for 3 years. So I finally took a side path for a while and went and did internal audit. And I loved internal audit. And after 5 years in internal audit, I had an opportunity to come to CCK. And what has been spectacular about CCK is it's taken all those things that I've learned along the way, all those skills and talents that I had kind of thought didn't fit, and found their home. So I've come here and now I'm able to really utilize my desire to help others and my love for internal audit because it gets into all these processes and it gets into IT and it leaves the accounting world and lets me use the knowledge that I have from accounting, but in a different arena. So I've really been able to lean into that. And that's how I've landed at CCK. And what I have loved is that that's our focus as a firm. It's not, let me do this one thing, or here's this one rule you need to follow. It's how do we move you forward as a business? And how do we move you forward as a person? How do we move you forward as an employee? And it's allowed me to use all those things that I've learned and put them into action pretty much every day. And I have absolutely loved that. And that brings me to 5.5 years now at CCK.
Wow. That's really cool. So one thing that resonated with me when you said that, I was very similar in that path of not knowing what major I wanted to do and all of that. But when you said that out loud, because I don't think I've ever heard that part of your story, and you said English major. So I'm going to take us on a little side journey, folks. Haley, you like to write still.
I do. I love to write.
And you do short stories occasionally, don't you?
I do.
Have you had any published?
Not anything of any recent. I've published an article recently in the OSCPA Focus.
Were you awarded anything for that?
Yes.
Nice, Christy.
The OSCPA and the members of that board graciously awarded me the Gold Pen Award for a well-written article relevant to the time and to the profession.
That is so cool. Christy, she knows how to brag on people. And you need to learn how to brag on yourself,
so
Haley.
Exciting.
Yes.
While we're talking about the labels and the brags for our listening audience, Haley, you said you're not an accountant, but you're a CPA and you work in a public accounting firm and you lead an assurance division. What does that mean?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you call yourself an accountant?
Typically, when I think of an accountant, I think of someone who really enjoys bank reconciliations. They like the transaction level detail. They want to get in there and they want it to be right. And I love those people because I don't want to be that person. At the end of the day, if my personal bank account is within $100 or $200 of what I expect it to be, I'm like, all right, we're good.
Nice.
I'll find the rest later.
Is it okay that your husband hears that?
Yeah. Considering I'm probably more detailed than he is.
Then it's good. All right.
We're good. But I love people who are true accountants because they're going to go find that. They want it to be perfect. They want it to be exact. And we need those people. It's just not, I don't do well in that level of detail. It wears me out and it is a hard stretch for me. I love to step back, though, at the end and look at that big picture and say, okay, you've got all these accounts to reconcile. You know where all the pennies are. Who cares? Now, what do we do with it?
Right.
And I like to take that information. And that's where, for me, there's a difference in an auditor and an accountant. The accountant is going to go find those pennies, and thank God they do. Your auditor is going to be the one who steps back and says, okay, but now does it make sense where they're all sitting?
I was just going to say the other difference between those two, we'll probably dig into a little bit more later, is just the concept of materiality. And your auditors can get by with claiming that, while others in the profession may not be able to. We'll talk about that in a little bit, I would imagine.
Yes. Well, actually, we're about to talk about that right now. That was a really good description and explanation between an accountant and an auditor. So an auditor kind of leads into the assurance world. Now, our listeners may not really understand what assurance is. They've heard the word audit, I'm sure, and you hear, and when you're in our profession, you hear the audit department, but it's really the assurance department. That's really the umbrella for all of those things. So, what is assurance, Haley? And kind of explain that.
So, assurance is a broad level term, whereas audit is a very specific term. So, audit is a very specific product that I do under the assurance umbrella. And so for assurance, it really is providing that reassurance or comfort to users, and the level of that comfort dictates what product is used. So an audit is typically held as the highest and best level of comfort that the financial statements are materially accurate. To Jeff's point, notice it says materially accurate. It doesn't say exactly accurate. We're not going to go and reperform every single transaction, but we're going to go sample things and make sure that materially it makes sense. Beyond an audit, though, assurance also covers financial statement reviews, which are kind of, I like to call them a sniff test. We're going to look through, we're going to make sure that relationships make sense to each other. We're going to make sure that what the client is telling us makes sense in relation to the financial statements, but we're not going to go in and reperform any transactions. We're not going to trace any details. That's all done at the audit level. So a review is considered a limited level of assurance. So we're going to say, yeah, it looks pretty good, but we haven't dug in. It's kind of like if you have kids and you go, is your room clean? Like, oh yeah. And you go, did you pick up all the laundry? And they say, yeah. And you look and you don't see laundry. That's a review. An audit is I've gone in and I've opened the closet to see all the stuff that crashes out onto us.
That is like the best analogy ever,
That
Haley.
is a great analogy.
Such a good analogy.
Parents probably understand that really well.
Yes.
So in an audit, we're going to go and we're going to look in the closets and we're going to look under the bed and we're going to open the drawers and make sure things actually are put away properly. A review, we're going to peek in the bedroom and go, yeah, okay, it's tidy, it's cleaned up. It's not, I don't see any obvious science experiments growing in your bedroom right now. There's also a compilation, which following that same trend would just be, did you clean your room? And your kid goes, yeah, I did. And you go, okay. It's
And you don't
considered
even look in that. You don't even look in the room.
You don't even look. You ask the question and you move on, as long as that it wasn't an obvious, oh no, I haven't done that yet. Okay. So compilation is considered a zero assurance product. And really all it is putting together the financial statement in a prescribed format. So all three of those fall underneath the assurance umbrella. Those are the most common things that you see in the financial statement world. For CCK, we've also expanded that to include other products that include the SOC examination. We can do internal audit work. There are other things that we can go and provide different levels of assurance to our clients and to the users of their financial statements or users of their data based on what they're looking for.
Nice. Okay.
So Haley, when we talk about these products, and if I'm an entrepreneurial business owner, I know we hear all the time, even when we're doing tax returns, we'll have people say to us, even business owners, will make a reference to us. They want someone additional to look at the books. I'm glad you're doing our tax return because you can audit our numbers, and that's not really what we're doing. But to our entrepreneurial business owners, why would they need some of these products, especially the audit, review, and compilation? Why would they need that?
Usually there is an outside force that is triggering that. Most commonly, it is a bank or a surety requirement. Occasionally, it's part of an operating agreement for some of our C Corps or S Corps or partnerships. They may have something written into their agreement that says the information will be audited on a routine basis. If there's not an outside requirement that an audit be performed, that's when I will typically push back and say, what are you really concerned about? And we might do an internal audit, which gives our clients significantly more control. An actual audit, a financial statement audit, is prescribed by the AICPA. I have to follow certain standards. I have to follow certain regulations. There are things that I have to do that at the end of the day, our client may be like, that's nice. Did you find out that my payroll clerk has been stealing from me? Nope, didn't find that out because an audit doesn't require that. With an internal audit, if that is what is legitimately the concern that is driving the request for an audit, we can actually go and look at that. We can say, hey, let's look at your procedures and your policies around payroll and see how those responsibilities are segregated. And we can help identify if there is a potential for fraud there or not. And that's where there's a distinction between an internal audit. I'm your friend, I'm helping out, I'm doing what you want me to do, versus an external audit. I'm not your friend, I'm not your enemy, but I'm not your friend because I have to do what the standards require me to do. It's a compliance product versus being somebody's friend. A review is similar in nature, usually for smaller loans or smaller bonding requirements. You'll see where those are requested a lot of times. And then a compilation is a lot of times the same. It's a bank most commonly. Once in a while, we'll see surety requesting, but usually a bank. And usually in a situation where the owner has personally guaranteed a loan, the bank just wants to see something that provides a little bit of confidence that somebody other than the owner has looked at these numbers before they're relying on them. They recognize it's not necessarily providing a high level of assurance, but it's at least, okay, my client or the bank who's made the loan, they can rely on those numbers. And it's not just something that somebody made up and wrote down in the back of an envelope because they like that number for the day. It's something that we've at least asked a few basic questions about in order to get something put into that format that they need.
And I love that you went through all of that because I think that's a really good basis and foundation for people to understand. And one thing that I love about you and your team is when clients call, they're usually like, hey, I need an audit. And you don't just say, okay, we'll do an audit. You like to dig in and ask why. Because, just looking from a cost perspective, audits are costly. And you are always looking out for our clients and making sure that they're not spending money that they really don't need to spend on something they really don't need.
And we love to sit down and do that root cause analysis of what are you really trying to accomplish and why? And if at the end of the day, an audit is what is determined is needed, then that's what we'll do. But a lot of times, until you have a large loan or you're looking to go out to sell your company, an audit is overkill. And it's going to do a lot of additional work that doesn't really serve your current goals, especially if you're a newer company that's just getting your feet under you or you're just starting up. A lot of times you're wanting to make sure your policies and procedures are in good shape, or you're wanting to make sure that there's nothing going completely wrong in your accounts receivable process. We can still help you with that, but an audit on average is $40,000 to $60,000, and that's a lot of money to spend just to know that your accounts receivable process is good. A lot of times we can give you greater confidence in the process and in what's happening for less cost at the end of the day, because we can design procedures that are going after your specific concerns. And so that's when we get calls or when contacts or existing clients at CCK say, hey, I need an audit, we're going to go through that conversation. We're going to find out why. Is someone outside asking for this, or do you have a specific concern? and we'll work with them to design the best result for their concerns.
Haley, I think one of the greatest oxymorons in all professionals, all professions, let's put it that way, is when a business owner says, I want an audit because I want to know if my payroll clerk is stealing from me. And they have no idea that even I guess the audit report still says that this is not done to uncover fraud.
Yep.
So it all goes back to the concept of what do you need and what's the best thing for us to do to service that need.
And that is a common misconception of audits, is that they're going to find fraud. And they very specifically state in all of our engagement letters and the opinion report itself, this was not done. It was not designed to find fraud. We have to maintain an awareness of the possibility, but we are not going to design tests specific to identify fraud. Now, at CCK, we are fortunate. We have several certified fraud examiners on the team. So we can do a specific fraud engagement. That is well within our abilities, and that also falls under our assurance umbrella. But it's different than an audit. It is a specific tool that is different that we can.
Yeah. All right. So under that whole assurance umbrella.
Not insurance.
Not insurance. No, we're not insuring anything. We have, you mentioned, and one of the meat of what we're talking about today, and I'm going to say it like I originally said it before, and Haley corrected me on the side, a SOC audit. What the heck is a SOC audit?
So first thing is there is technically no such thing as a SOC audit. An audit is defined by the AICPA as a financial statement report. It is a SOC examination. And SOC is not socks of any definition. To Jeff's point, it's not your dad's stinky socks.
SOCKS.
Yes.
Yep. It's also not SOX, SOX, which is Sarbanes-Oxley, which is applicable to public companies and their internal control structures. It is a system and organization of controls, SOC. And a SOC exam is a product that goes in and evaluates controls around different things, depending on the product you select, even within the SOC umbrella, that helps evaluate if your controls are appropriately designed and potentially if they are also in place so that other people can rely on you and the information that you are providing or producing.
Can you give us an example of what a control is?
Sure.
Okay.
So a lot of people will say, I have a control because I sign my checks. Cool. Okay. That by itself is not necessarily a control. That is a process. A control is something designed to prevent or detect an error or a misstatement, whether that is in financial statements or in producing of data or something else. So signing the check by itself is not a control. But if you say that checks can only be signed by Jeff Frable, then that means we're preventing Haley Legg from losing her mind and trying to give herself a $10,000 pay raise. I can't do that. I don't have the authority. I don't have the control. Only Jeff could sign a check that would allow that to happen. We also have other controls that can complement that. So controls should never be evaluated in a vacuum. They should always be looked at with controls around them. So Jeff can't even go in and say, Haley gets a $10,000 raise. Come on, Jeff, why not? But that has to go through our comp committee. The comp committee has to say, yes, we agree, Haley is worth this extra money, or no, she's not. And so he doesn't get to have that say by himself either. So both of those then become controls that prevent me from doing anything. Or if I did accidentally somehow get a hold of a check and write it to myself, it would be detected on the backside when we're doing bank reconciliations. So when our finance team goes through and reconciles the bank at the end of the month, they're going to go, no one approved this check. Where did this come from? So there's a preventive control with who can sign, and there's a detective control on the backside to say, whoops, that shouldn't have happened. And it can be stopped or prevented in the future.
Okay. So who can actually issue SOC exams?
Anybody authorized by the AICPA. So
it is a designation?
It is. But it is also something that a CPA can sign. So you don't have to have a special designation from the AICPA, but those are the rules that govern who can do it. The AICPA, which is the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants, kind of governs everything that we do, whether it's a financial statement audit, a review, anything like that. They're kind of setting out those standards of what we can and can't do. And they also provide us with a lot of guidance, a lot of rules around how we do these specific exams. But then they also provide specialized training to help make sure that we know what we're doing and that we're understanding it, not only in context of our specific client base or what we think it should be, but in relation to what the rest of the industry and the profession is doing.
Okay. So you've got these exams and CPAs under the AICPA guidance can issue them. Why the heck do I even need an exam? Why do they even exist?
They've come about, originally they came around because people were using providers to process payroll or to process other financial statement information. And as part of a financial statement audit, we were saying, hey, how do you know your payroll is right? And people would be like, oh, I've hired payroll ABC to do my payroll. And it's like, well, great. How do you know that they did it right? And they'd kind of look and go, because I paid them to do it.
Yeah.
And basically, as auditors, we said that you can't delegate your responsibility. You can delegate the task, but it's still your responsibility to make sure your employees are paid properly. So the initial tool that came out, and this dates way back, it was a SAS 70 report, which is a statement on auditing standards. But it basically said, you have to go out and make sure that that outsourced function is processing the data correctly if you're going to rely on it in your own financial statements. So anytime you have payroll processed, or if you've outsourced your accounts receivable function or any other function where someone else is processing your data and giving you an answer, they're manipulating what you give them, raw data, they're manipulating it, giving it back to you, and that answer is then used in your financial statements. That's where the SAS 70 originated.
Okay.
As that evolved, people kind of started going, okay, I get it for my financial statement, but we love what we're learning about our vendors and how they secure our data. Does it have to be just financial statement information? Or can the same ideas and philosophies apply if I'm giving them marketing material, if I'm giving them personal information? So as data privacy became a bigger issue throughout the economy, throughout the world, the AICPA addressed that and said, you know what, we're already digging into this. We can also look at these other tools. So that's where the SOC evolved, and there are multiple versions of a SOC that can be utilized depending on what your end goals are.
Okay, so before we get into the different types, like who would need a SOC exam? I mean, because I'm hearing that they've completely separated it from a regular audit, and it's really just more looking at controls, although it sounds like you can also do the SOC exams with a regular financial audit, and it's like a supplemental thing. But I'm also hearing that that now they've separated them out into two separate things. What kind of people would need specifically a SOC exam to have that added level of assurance?
So the people who are going to need the SOC performed on their company are going to be any type of company that handles sensitive data or sensitive information. So if you're processing or handling payroll information, if you're handling healthcare information, if you're handling intellectual property, if you're making a commitment to your clients that your system is going to be available to them, a SOC exam comes in and provides that assurance. And it goes through what are the agreements our client has made with their clients. And even though we issue the report to our client, the people who are going to use that report are typically their clients. So we're providing ultimately assurance to our client's client, the end user, that the information that is available through our client is handled appropriately.
So going back, Haley, when you're talking about these real world examples, so you're talking data and information, you're talking banks, you're talking hospitals, doctors' offices, law firms, accounting firms, what else? Are we talking about like just your simple apps on your phone that they're controlling information and data, that whether it's credit card or anything like that? Those are the kind of situations you're talking about, right?
Yep. And because there's currently no mandate for a lot of these products, a lot of times it's something that is going to be driven by our client's client. So a good example, we have a client we work with that processes information they receive from their client. And their client basically said, we need you to get a SOC 2 to tell us that you're handling our information correctly.
Okay.
And so we went in and evaluated their systems of how do you get that information in the door? How do you protect it once it's in the door? How do you destroy it? How do you make sure that it doesn't get leaked? How do you make sure that no one sells it? And so it's a protection for our client's client that the information they're providing is going to be secured during its time there. A lot of companies for a long time were like, oh, it's okay. We've got an NDA or we've got this agreement or we've got an understanding. We shook hands. I know this person forever. But there was no real assurance the IT systems or the processes for onboarding people were such that it could actually protect that data. And so what the SOC reports have really come in and said is, how are you really doing this? How do I know I can trust you with my information? And it's not, we don't go in and say, oh, you're using the wrong encryption software. There are probably thousands of encryption softwares on the market. At the end of the day, the end user has to decide if that is an encryption software that they are comfortable with. For the SOC purpose, we're looking to say, you told your client you use encryption software. Now prove it to me.
Okay. So do you get like when you give this SOC exam, are you giving like a stamp of approval? Is there something that they can display, like a plaque that says, I've done my SOC exam?
Yes, they get a plaque.
The plaque that most people will look at and go, what is that?
What is that? Yeah.
Kind of like a birthday pin. They get to wear it around.
Yeah.
And there's nothing officially that is a part of that process other than the report we provide, but the report is restricted. So what that means is I might provide it to client A and their customer A may say, hey, I want this. Client A does not have to give it to their customer. It is restricted to their use, but they may choose to give it because within that report, it includes their sensitive information. It talks through their processes, the softwares that they use. And there may be proprietary information within that they don't want anybody else to know about. So on a SOC 1 or a SOC 2, they have that report. They don't have to give it away. It's up to their discretion in the agreements that they have. Some of our clients have requested an email badge, and we've been fortunate enough that we've been able to create a little emblem that connects on their email signature that says SOC performed by CCK Strategies. And so their clients can then click on that and it takes them to the SOC report, but then it can also take them to our website to check out what we do as well. So it's kind of a nice little feature that can be there, and they put it on there kind of, we have best places to work on our email signature. It's kind of the same thing for them. They're like, hey, we did this. Look at us go. We're awesome.
So they do get a badge.
They can ask
an
for
electronic badge.
A digital badge.
Right? Yeah. Okay, so you've made reference. So let's get into that. You've said there's different types of SOC exams and reports. So I hear 1 and 2. Is there 3, 4, 5? How many different kinds are there?
So there are technically 5 options for a SOC report.
Okay.
They are segregated into 3 different products, which is a SOC 1, a SOC 2, or a SOC 3.
It sounds like Dr. Seuss.
Yes. 1 fish, 2 fish, red fish, blue fish.
Yes. One SOC,
Haley,
2 SOC.
Haley has been known to write some poetry, so I can see something creative coming out of this.
Yes.
I'm just saying.
My ode to SOC exams.
Oh, all right. We got some juices flowing for sure.
This could take a dangerous turn, guys. So quick high level on the different products. A SOC 1 is intended to be that report that was the original SAS 70, which means the client we're performing our engagement for, they are producing information that their clients are using in their financial statements. So most commonly, we see a SOC 1 for a payroll provider or a third-party administrator who's processing claims related to healthcare or to employee benefits. If there's somebody doing medical coding where they're taking information in, manipulating and producing a result that impacts financial statements, that could be a SOC 1 as well. But that's really getting into how are you pulling in data, how are you manipulating it, and then how are you sending it back to your client?
Okay.
And it only applies if that result is used in financial statements.
Okay.
A SOC 2 is everything else. It's more about the technology and data handling processes. So it's if you are a software provider, if you have software as a service, you may need that SOC 2 that says, hey, we're going to pull in your information. We may or may not be processing anything, but we're going to have it. And we want you to know that while we have it, it is secure.
So it's building trust, or it's like providing trust for that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
It's about the trust. I love that. That's perfect phrasing.
A trust badge.
Trust badge. Nice.
In a SOC 1 and a SOC 2, both of those reports include a description of the system, which can be very lengthy and very tedious to non-technical people. It talks about a lot of IT. We are fortunate at CCK. We have some wonderful IT experts who also help me out with these engagements, and they get as excited about reading IT structure as I do about auditing. So we make a great team.
Nice. All right. So if IT are geek out just as much as you do, what's something that they're looking for and how are they teaming up with you?
So a lot of times the way we'll utilize our IT friends is to really read through that. And while, like I said, I'm not going to say you're using the right software for your encryption or the wrong software, our IT friends can read that and say, hey, yeah, you're right. You're doing what you said you would do. But if you use this one instead, it could really strengthen your case. It's a stronger or more modernized version of the tool. So they'll help us out with some of that very technical IT component. They'll also make sure that the language is correct when we get into a lot of that. So I can read it and know if it makes sense, but if it's the current version of Microsoft Azure or not, I don't know. I don't keep up with that. Curtis and Lee, God bless them, they do keep up with that. And they let me know if a client is so far out of date that maybe it's not that good anymore. And then I can recommend to the client, hey, it's not wrong, but you're going to get pushback from your users if they see this in your description. So the system description really walks through what is happening. And that's why a lot of times the SOC 1 and the SOC 2 are not necessarily intended to be broadly shared. They're targeted to existing customers or users. A SOC 3, which is the third product, is more of a marketing tool. It's designed to really say, hey, we have this done. We can put it on our website. We can advertise that we get this done. And it's a nice general statement so that people can put it out there and use it for that purpose of marketing. The SOC 1 and the SOC 2 include detailed descriptions. They also include details of the testing and the results of any testing that are done. So you might not want that out there for your broad public to be able to see. So that's where the SOC 3 came in. Those are the three different types of product that you can have under that SOC umbrella.
Okay.
More specifically then, on a SOC 1 and a SOC 2, you can also have a type 1 or a type 2. Again, one fish, two fish.
Yes,
it works.
And in those situations, a type 1 is we're taking a snapshot as of a date and time. We're going to look and see, is your system designed properly? And at least as of that one day in time, can we tell that the controls have been implemented? So if we were to say that in order to hire a new employee, it must be approved by the hiring manager and the director of HR, well, that's a good design. I know that's a good design. And then I'm going to go say, hey, can you show me a situation? Show me your most recent hire. And they'll say, look, here it is. I'm like, great. Was that in place 3 months ago? I don't know. A type 1 doesn't care about what happened 3 months ago. It's saying, as of this specific date, are the controls designed and do they appear to be implemented?
Okay.
Cool. A type 2 then says, over a period of time, were those controls in place and did they operate effectively? So it's then looking and saying, okay, we're looking at a whole year of new hires. You hired 37 new employees. We're going to test 8 of those. Did this control actually operate in all 8 instances? And if it didn't, why not? What happened? Was there some extenuating circumstance? Was there something else that prevented the control from operating properly? And we'll disclose that as part of the report. So you might run into a situation where no, it didn't, because we didn't have a director of HR for 3 months. Instead, we had the managing partner of the firm sign off on this. Okay, you still had 2 people approve this hire. It's probably still a good control. So we're not going to necessarily say, oh, you had an exception in this testing. This is a bad thing. You must fix it. but we're going to say there was an exception and here's why it happened and why management is okay. And that's all part of that type 2 report.
So that's where you're getting into detail and saying, this is why, when you don't want it to be publicized to the world, because you're actually going in and saying an HR director was not there, so somebody else signed off on it. So you're getting into that granular detail of an organization in those type of audits.
Yes. And
Okay.
that's why we generally don't encourage that to be broadly shared outside of existing contract agreements. So another thing that kind of helps people understand, when we sign contracts at CCK, one of the first things I ask for from a vendor is I need a copy of your SOC examination. Because if they're going to be entering our software or we're going to be entering our information into their software, I need to know that it is protected, that it is secured. Because we have a lot of client information that is highly confidential. Sometimes we have information that could be considered intellectual property of our clients as well. We have intellectual property of our own. I'm not going to open the door to just anybody where they can come in and walk out the door with it. I'm going to make sure that they come in the door and they are protected and guarded the whole time while they clean our house or whatever it is that they're going to do. So that's something else that I feel like business owners need to understand a SOC report, not only if they need to have it done for themselves, but why they may want to get one from their own vendors.
Right. So in that vein, if you had a client call, they listen to this podcast and they're like, I need a SOC exam. And they're like, I want all the SOC exams. I want SOC 1, 2, 3,
I want
4.
all the bells and whistles.
I'm going to assume, since we've already talked about it earlier, that you're going to ask them a lot of questions to get down to the root. Yeah.
We'll go through some conversations about what they do, what information they're processing, what they receive in, and how they're meeting their contractual obligations with their clients or customers, and try to identify what needs to happen. Try not to get too far into the weeds, because I really could, even though I'm not a detail person.
Go ahead.
Under a SOC 2, there are 5 trust criteria. You are required to have security done. So we have to check your security on your overall system. But beyond that, there are 4 additional trust criteria that you get to choose if you want to do those or not. And it's going to depend on whether or not you think your clients need it. So one of the criteria, for example, is availability. If you're not providing software as a service or something else where you're telling your client this service and this product will be available to you with an uptime of 97%, availability may not be important to you. But if you're bringing in medical information and you're helping code medical charts, making sure that you're meeting privacy standards is going to be very important. So you would want to bring in privacy and have privacy covered as one of your trust criteria. So I'll work through with any prospective client, what are you doing? How is the information being used? And which ones make sense? Ultimately, management has to make the decision of what they want to be part of that exam and what they don't. But we can have that conversation and I can provide education and understanding and clarity around why this one or that one make more sense.
Haley, can I come at this from just a slightly different angle? And so we've been talking about these engagements, and I could see where if I'm a business owner, I'm listening to whether or not this is something I should do or provides value, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. But if I'm in the profession, if I'm in school or about ready to graduate, new to the profession or even seasoned, what kind of experience do I need to have as, say, a staff auditor or a manager or a senior that allows me to work on these engagements? Are there certifications of any kind? Is it just a passion for that area, a taking to that area, or what?
Right now, I wouldn't say that there's anything specific or additional beyond your normal credentials to work for a public accounting firm. That said, if you have an undergrad or a secondary degree or a minor in MIS, it can be very helpful.
What's MIS?
Management Information Systems.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. So it's a more IT emphasis than traditional accounting. Where it really helps is because you are reading these very technical descriptions about the way the information is processed. So we are getting into what is security, how is it handled, what is the encryption process, and what makes sense. So an understanding of IT beyond just I turned on my computer can be really beneficial. So knowing one of the ones that is I think fairly easy for people to understand, but is a common IT thing, is data backups. So I don't know the details of how a data backup is done or not done, but I know that they need to be done. I know we need to save a copy of what's on our systems every day. And I know that we need to be able to access that later. So not only do I know that we need to be doing data backups, but I know we need to do failover testing to make sure that those backups are actually saving correctly. How many times, well, you guys are my age, so you understand, how many times did we record a tape or a CD and we got so excited off the radio and then we'd go hit play and there was nothing there?
Devastation. Devastation. Yes.
And that's what happens with failover. A lot of times when you've done your backup, it didn't actually take. And so it's not just that you're having it done, but that you're testing your failovers occasionally to make sure that they are actually valid failovers that can reboot your system when needed. If you ask me what software has to be done, I can't tell you those things. That's where I lean into my IT guys a lot. But I know it needs to happen, and I know when the control is designed properly or not.
Haley, I have a question. Coming from the non-assurance professional, the non-tax advisor, the non-accountant, when I hear all of this, it sounds so complex. So I have these audits, I have reviews, compilations, I have these exams. Once I have, let's say, a SOC 1, and I did one of the types you suggested. Once I have that information, I'm glad I have it because I can check something off of a list. How in the world do I understand it? What do I do with it? I mean, I need someone I trust to look at it to guide me through that next step. Is that something that with independence, the person that performed the exam can help me with?
Yes. So as the person performing the exam, part of what I have to do is make sure your description is properly written, which means you have to be able to tell me how it really works. And because I'm not typically a strong technical person, that's how I find out. If you can't really tell me either, then maybe we don't have it written right yet. And so we'll work together to come up with the proper language and the proper writing. And then when we get into the testing and into the controls, in any situation where you were working with an auditor, whether it's a true audit or it's any other assurance product, if that person, that auditor person, can't explain to you what they did, how they did it, why they did it, and why they disagree with your results, they're not fulfilling their commitment to you. I should be able to sit down and have a conversation and educate on any part of this exam, whether that's the description or the testing and the results, and then explain why that's important to you. And if the answer is ever strictly, well, congratulations, you checked the box, maybe we haven't found the right thing yet. Typically, in your specific example, Christy, if you say you want a SOC 1, I'm going to say, great. Who are your users who need this? After we've gone through it all together and we have the final report issued, then I'll say, okay, now you can distribute this to your payroll process clients or to whoever it was that really needed that. And you then have that confidence to talk them through if there was an exception in the testing, why it was a problem or why it's not, and what you're doing to correct it.
And going in even deeper into that, Christy, and so Haley, I'm going to ask you, what is the return on investment of actually getting these exams done? Like, why? I mean, like to Christy's point, yeah, I got it. I've got it in my hand. Big whoop. I spent some money to get a trust or something to add to my financial reporting. What kind of things are you actually seeing real world that is a true return on investment of actually having these done?
So with a lot of our clients, the first and the obvious one is, well, they have checked a box, unfortunately, for some client or some vendor, but that allows them to retain that customer that might have otherwise taken their business somewhere else, especially for our smaller clients who a lot of times are like, oh gosh, I only have 3 or 4 clients. I don't need that. Maybe not, but someday one of them might decide that they do, and then they're going to take their business somewhere else if you haven't done anything to even prepare or think about it. So there are things you can do to prepare for this eventuality without actually going through the full cost of a full examination. We do also provide readiness assessments that help with that. So Curtis comes in and kind of looks at your system and helps from the very technical IT side. But I can also look and see from the control side, are you really designed properly? Is there something we can do? Properly designed controls should also support your overall business goals. They should never be just to check a box. They should help you be more efficient, to help you have more confidence, to help you have more accuracy. So those are some of the quick, easy hits of what you're going to gain. It can then become, even though you might not distribute the report, you can say, oh, yes, we've had our SOC 2 done. We're SOC 2 type 2 compliant, so we can meet your needs from a security. So you can state that as part of a marketing tactic.
Nice.
So Haley, what I heard from you was that if you have a client that comes to you and asks for your SOC report for your SOC exam, and you don't have it done, it's generally not something you can get done in 24 hours. It takes a little bit of time. How have these exams come to fruition? In other words, I don't think they've just popped up in the last 2 or 3 years. It's kind of a gradual thing. But are we on a trajectory that says at some point in time, these are going to become, given the digital age, they're going to become more and more important? And so if you're handling client information, you really should start thinking about these things sooner rather than later. Is that reasonable?
In my personal opinion, yes, that is the trajectory that we are on. I'm sure there are people who are like, it'll never come to that. But the more and more evolved we become with our technology, the less and less trust we have in our technology, because the more we know about how often the technology fails. So where a SOC exam becomes really helpful is not just in saying, hey, we've got this technology and we have these controls. We're also equipped to handle it when it doesn't work. And here's how we're going to take care of you. So if anybody was really bored last week when Microsoft went down and they happened to have the Microsoft SOC exam, they probably could have gone and read it and found in there somewhere what their commitment was to all of their customers to ensure that they got back up within an appropriate time frame. I didn't go read that. I had more entertaining things to do with my time. But but it becomes, to Sarah's point, it helps build that trust. It really creates that opportunity. And as we continue to grow and evolve and trust, in my opinion, lessons, the more important it becomes to be transparent and to tell people, this is what we're doing. We're never going to be perfect because that's not a possible goal. But here's what we're going to do to get back to perfect as quickly as possible. And that is a part of what happens with that SOC exam as well.
You talked about marketing and how you can highlight what you do compared to your competitors. It just seems like a SOC exam would differentiate your business by showing that your standards are higher for your security, your clients' data, your privacy, their privacy. What about an investor? Would an investor be someone who would want to take a look for their own due diligence?
Yes. So we actually have a client that has recently gone through an acquisition, and they had also just started having SOC exams completed. And that was one of the things requested in the due diligence process was, how are you handling this? And in their case, they have a couple of different systems that were going through different SOC examinations, but we were able to work with them and reassure that acquiring entity that they're doing the right things. We're still working on some of the testing. We're still working through it. But yes, if you're looking to sell your company, providing that assurance can be beneficial, especially if it's a company that's already having those done. Then they know your policies and procedures are better aligned to accommodate whatever their policies and procedures are as well.
So Haley, is this a one and done thing, or is it an annual thing, or what? Yes.
Yes is a good example. So the SOC type 1, for a SOC 1 or a SOC 2 type 1, because it's a point in time, that's at
one and done.
Client discretion. It's a one and done. Some of our clients come back and say, okay, it's been a year. Let's do it again and just make sure nothing has changed, make sure our description is still accurate, make sure it's still current and relevant for our users. When you do a type 2, you typically want to set a cadence that makes sense. Generally, I don't recommend less than 6 months ever. But if your operating cycle is consistent with a 1-year period, then a 1-year cycle on your SOC examination also makes sense. But if you have an 18-month cycle, then an 18-month cycle within your SOC examination might make more sense. But if it's a type 2, it's covering that period of time, and you probably want to keep that period of time going and not allow it to lapse, or else at some point you have to catch it back up or start over.
Haley, I don't know what to say. You are so intelligent and so professional with your descriptions and the way you talk. I mean, you take something that is extremely complicated and break it down so that it's understandable. And
into a dirty bedroom or dirty
into
spots.
a dirty bedroom. And I would venture to say that this is probably one of the more technical episodes we've had. And I appreciate you walking us through that. But before we close, there is one last thing that we always do to our guests.
Oh, no.
It's time for
rapid fire.
Where's our soundbite, Sarah?
We need it. I know. We need to talk to Clarence.
Yeah. So anyway, we've got rapid fire for you. This is our opportunity to get to know you better and allow yourself to tell our audience a little bit more about yourself. So take it away, Sarah.
All right, Haley. Now that we've talked about it, we'll start off with, what's your favorite assurance work product? Like, what do you like to do under the assurance umbrella?
I do love SOC examinations, but my love for that stems from internal audits. And I love them because they're outside the traditional realm of the accounting and the financial. You heard I'm an English education major originally. I wound up getting an accounting degree. I really am not very good at math.
Haley.
But I love process. I love design. And so I really get excited to be able to do that. And I use that in my financial statement audit a lot as well. But really, internal audit and SOC examinations.
It's your jam.
That I love them.
Yes. Get it. All right. Do you like to live by routine or do you fly by the seat of your pants?
I like to pretend that I like to live by routine. But I have a 14-year-old with a very active lifestyle, so I have learned to live comfortably by the seat of my pants.
Nice. That happens when you have teenagers, that's for sure. All right. What is something that you're proud of, but you rarely share?
Ooh, I feel like I should have been prepared for that one.
You can't say the golden pen because it's already been shared.
Your jeweler.
My what?
Your jewelry knowledge.
Oh, well, okay, yeah. I don't know if that's really proud, but I am proud that I've been able to take so many different facets of my personality that are not traditional in a typical CPA, I think, and put them all to use in what I do today. And I'm proud that I have found a firm that encourages and embraces the entire package and oddity that is me.
Nice.
And it's, you've seen the memes on Facebook or Instagram or whatever, I'm sure, like the Namakre, where the crazy in me greets the crazy in you. I'm like, I found it at work.
Love that.
And I feel very proud of that because it was not something that came naturally to me. And I don't think it comes naturally to most people who pursue accounting degrees. So to find it and to embrace it and to love it has been an adventure that I would not trade for anything. And I am proud that I found here, and that I've been able to stay here.
Good response.
Love that. Yes, super cool. All right. City energy or nature calm?
Depends on my mood. I don't really like crowds. So generally, I would say nature is where I'm going to be happier, but I am a huge people person, but in 2s and 3s, not 200s and 300s.
I feel you. Okay. Well, I was going to guess that you were going to say nature because I know the type of trips that you take are very nature revolving around nature. So yes. And then last, all right, slow mornings or productive starts?
I would say productive starts. Like, I'm really not a morning person, but once I finally gotten myself out of bed, move over because I'm not slowing down.
Look out, world.
Yeah. I'm ready to go. Let's do this thing.
I get that vibe for sure.
Haley, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been fantastic. And I would tell our listening audience that if there was something today that you heard, whether you're a business owner or in the profession that spoke to you, that you found interesting, that you'd like to know more about, or maybe you might actually think you need some sort of SOC exam, email us podcast@cckcpa.com. That's podcast@cckcpa.com. We want to connect with you. Sarah, I think we got a winner on the tumbler.
We sure did.
We did. And he will be a future guest, actually.
See what happens when
we'll talk about that when he's on the pod. But don't, to our dozens of listeners, stop emailing us for the tumbler because it only took like 4 episodes. So
you might be a guest.
I think our listeners just don't want to bother us is the problem, Sarah.
No, we want to be bothered.
Bother
Please,
us, email us, tell us what you like, what you don't like. If you'd like us to cover a certain topic, let us know that as well. We would love to hear from you. So please email us, podcast@cckcpa.com. As always, we want to thank CCK for allowing us the opportunity to explore this medium and have this podcast. To KP, thank you so much for your protection of the brand and making sure that we're saying things in ways that everybody will understand. Thank you so much. To Robert Mays for our intro and outro music, Clarence Fisher with Tulsa Internet Marketing Services. Thank you for your continual help. And Emily Johansson, thank you for all the behind the scenes work that you do. So with that, we'll wrap up. Thank you again for joining us this week, and join us next time as these two CPAs get together to have a chat and you get to find out who's on the mic.
The information provided on this podcast is for general informational and educational purposes only and does not constitute accounting, tax, legal, or financial advice. While we strive to provide accurate and up-to-date information, laws and regulations change and individual circumstances vary. Always consult with a qualified CPA or professional advisor before making any financial or business decisions. The views expressed by the hosts and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of any organizations they are affiliated with. Listening to this podcast does not create a client-accountant relationship. By listening to this podcast, you acknowledge and agree to those terms.
And that's a wrap for this episode of Two CPAs in the Mic. If you found today's episode helpful, please subscribe, share, and leave us a review. Have questions or ideas for a topic? Reach out. We'd love to hear from you. Email us at podcast@cckcpa.com.